All right, cyber traders, welcome on back for another fantastic edition of our weekly workshop, simulcast inside our live trading room, as well as on YouTube, that being Traders Talk, our weekly workshop. So, folks, for all of our students and new trial members here just joining us, allow me a chance to introduce myself here. My name is Josh Levitan. Don't have the webcam up today. I got a face for radio today, but with that in mind, I'm Fausto, senior instructor at Cyber Trading University each and every week here in this workshop, every Tuesday morning, that is. We have a chance to break down just specific trades that we had called out and not just showing you like, oh, we made money here. Oh, look at that trade there. It's a matter of saying, hey, what are the actual X's and O's behind taking any trade, right? And we'll go over, of course, the ones that we did call out from earlier, trades that I took myself, trades that I did not take myself, trades that students took themselves, and trades otherwise that, we'll see if they're moving live heading into the end of this workshop. But this gives us really the second best outlet, as far as what we provide at Cyber Trading University in terms of putting a trade under a microscope and really digging deep. I say second best outlet because otherwise, if you're interested in joining our main curriculum as a student, that is where we'd say otherwise. In our phase 1, 2, 3 classes, that gives us the best chance to go over our entire strategy in full. But with that said, though, right before I started Traders Talk, I had asked a question, right? A poll question for all of our students here. I quickly said, hey, did you trade pre-market this morning? There's no wrong answer. I'm just, asking to ask, right? So for everyone that wrote back, you had about 29% of us, nearly 30% of us that wrote yes, that they were trading this morning in pre-market. Okay, I didn't have this set up on the poll at least here, but for my 30%, 29 to 30% that wrote yes, let me ask you, what stock or maybe stocks did you end up trading in the pre-market this morning? There were a few different stocks moving, right? What did we end up trading? Leonard on Lace, Gary on RVSN, Kathleen on Lace, Brian on Lace. There's more than just Lace, but that's obviously the trade of the morning. That was the best one of them, right? All right, so let's start off on Lace, but even like I would say we could even start off on like a stock like AECRV. Actually, you know what? Follow me for a second. We'll go ACRV first. Actually, even better because look at this disaster right now. Pop, drop, looks like it's going to probably just go lower coming up here. Let me ask you here, what category stock would you give this? Like in terms of volatility, would you give it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? We teach this in the phase 1 stock course. What category stock would you give this? And like how fast or slow would you say this is? What do you got? Brian or Kath, Cal, Margaret, Kevin, Brian? What do we got? If I said your name twice, Brian. A few of us saying 4, right? Kevin saying 3. There's no algorithm that we could plug in and be like, it's a level 3.6854 stock. No, but as long as you're not saying a level 1 or 2 stock, I think that you're within ballpark, right? Reach of, kind of the right answer. So let's look at the spread right now. This is a live interpretation, mind you, right now, live, right? This is live right now. But live, this is on a big spread. It's on like a 6-7 cent spread. That alone is at least a level 3, I'd say, if not probably leaning towards a level 4. If I were to use like, the little indicator I pop up during that one class, I only use it for that class, but the average true range, I don't know. This thing's probably moving like 20 cents a clip, 20, 25 cents a bar here on average, because look at these larger ones. It means that this is a crazy stock. And if you find the stock to be crazy right now, imagine what it was like when there wasn't as much volume out there, even compared to what you're looking at live. Imagine what it was like when you don't have the chance to set your seatbelt on, right? Where we talk about, setting stops in the car example. All right, well, hey, it's only a Tuesday today, but if anyone's going out to dinner with the old family later, I could only imagine that the first thing that you would do upon, putting your grandchildren or maybe children otherwise into your car is to make sure that the seatbelt's on, right? Well, hey, in pre-market, we don't have a chance to put our seatbelt on this type of stock, on any stock, let alone something with not much volume really on the order book. Well, where am I getting to? Well, this wasn't really a great trade altogether in pre-market, thankfully. I mean, I guess it bounced a little bit, but that's where I could say, well, you know what? Today was a pretty rare pre-market day. Today was a very rare pre-market day because obviously live right now, this lace trade has a penny spread. It has a very filled in order book. This is exactly what it looked like at 8 o'clock. This is the exact same type of order book that it was in pre-market. I'm sure maybe you could say it's even a little more filled in now, but this was on a consistently tight spread, maybe at most 2 cents as it was moving higher. So this was the best trade across the whole pre-market. This was, I think, my second trade that I ended up jumping into. Not the first. The first I'll actually show in just a moment. That was also a decent runner, but this was the best. This is the easiest on the eyes, right? So let's go over this trade at first. We had this on the pre-market watch list, I believe, at 7:50 Eastern time this morning. I posted it probably about 5 minutes later than I normally do. A little easy. But at 7:50 in the morning, I ended up posting the pre-market watch list myself. You had Lace, you had RVSN. One of us said that there. There's that ACRV, right, from before. But that means that at 7:50 in the morning, the latest, the absolute latest, because it popped earlier, if it popped up on your percent gainers list, if you saw maybe some chat prior to the list being posted, I'm sure students like Grant or Leda were calling it out at first. We're talking 7:30, 7:35 in the morning there. And if not students like Grant or Leda, you had Rich. Rich posting the news. I'll give him a quick little shout right now because, before the pre-market watch list is posted, I have him just do a little commentary for us. And, you post the news out at 7:33, talking about laser photonics, the secures an order, some levels to work off of. So we were on this early. But that means even furthermore, you have the time to find support resistance, don't you? And that's our whole strategy. It's not just looking for it on the chart, but it's a matter of looking for it on the order book. All right. So let's go through the motions, and I'll just kind of run spoiler here to you folks. I'll kind of tell you the ending here for right now. The answer actually is on the chart. The answer actually is just looking at like resistance building from the chart, but I do want to go through volume, if anything. All right. All right. So let me show the heat map. Let me show what level 4 looked like prior to the 8 o'clock move, because you didn't need to trade this at 7:30. You didn't need to be up at the crack of dawn to follow the stock and make money on it. Just, as long as you are up early enough to prep up your levels for the 8 o'clock move, it gives you that better opportunity. So let's see if I could try and phrase this the right way. I don't want to throw anyone off. Look on the column on the far right. We teach this in class in phase 1 and phase 2 and like all three phases, honestly, spread throughout in different variations and iterations. We teach this. Look at the far right column where it says CVP. What two price levels, stick out the most? Not just one, but two. What two price levels on the far right side column, CVP, stick out to you for like Margaret, Cal, Scott, Dominic, Sam? Elmer, there we go. We'll reschedule just a quick call that we had for yesterday, Elmer. Look forward to speaking with you here, and Kevin as well. It looks like a few of us are saying like 220, right? Head on there, head on with 220, and you could probably say a little 225, a little 225 there. No. All right, so this stock ended up making a pretty good push. It was after 8 o'clock. But at first, it took a little time. It was a little chippy. It ended up moving up towards 225 here. False breakout. And then on the way back up, it tries it again, and it's not perfect, mind you, but it begins the push. And what I mean by that, it begins the push is, well, it doesn't hold above 225 perfectly here, but it's two different levels to watch. That's why I was asking for both. And Barbara, Jeff, Margaret, Scott, Kevin, and they're all saying the right answer there. It was that 220 and 225 combination, right? And you do want to take the trade off the higher of the two levels, because after that point, you're looking for your better reaction after 8 o'clock. This is. So I think I went break even on this trade at first, like on this specific stock. This was the second trade, I believe, across my morning, but on my first entry of this, I believe I went break even. Yeah, I was in from 227. I sold half at 229. Then I sold the second half at 227. I'm like, the hell with this. It's not making that pop. And then on the next candle, I don't want you to think I just like take trades over and over and over and over and over and over. Trust me, I don't. For anyone here that doesn't like feeling impulsive, yeah, that's the last thing I want to feel when it comes to trading. But what I focus on is, what? If it's not going to break down and tank, and if it's actually going to hold above 225, then maybe it could promote one more entry. Now, because this stock had such a tight spread, such a good order book throughout all of pre-market, it's what made this stock tradable enough to try and take this on a couple of occasions. Um, really quick, this is easy to say. Disregard all these down wicks here and this up wick. Just it might be easy to say that and easy to hear, but just disregard the down wicks. It's just here. This ended up holding support effectively. I jumped back in on half the size that I originally had. It wasn't on the full size that I had there, but it was on half. And then at that point, it ended up pushing up. Now, how about this? Really quick question here. Pre-market trade, easy to say a stock continued up higher. Also in pre-market trading, something to know is that there's no volatility halts in pre-market. So if this wants to like run to the moon, and if they really want to do that, you could see that happen. Actually, quick shout to one of our members on YouTube just before answering that question on the lace trade, Dell 225 there on YouTube. Appreciate your participation there, Dell. But where I'm getting to here is that this stock ended up making a pretty nice little push, but it's easy to leave money on the table. For Margaret, for Elmer, for Scott, actually more for our more seasoned students. So if you're just joining us, if you want to answer, please. But this is something you'll really grow comfortable with the more that you're with us here. Let me ask for our more experienced veteran students of CTU. Let's say for a year longer. For a cheap stock like $2 stock, $2.25 stock, what would a big move be to you? What would a big move be to you? I mean, you always hear me say it. When a stock breaks through a big level, should be getting a big move. Like, if I ever run for Congress or president, that's my campaign slogan. It's like one of my famous catchphrases. But that's kind of ambiguous. It's kind of generic, basically. What does that mean, though? What's a big move to you for like a $2, $2.25 stock? Cal says $1. Kathleen says about 40 or so cents. Leonard saying 50. Scott saying 20 or so cents. Barbara saying 25 cents. Kevin saying 50 cents. Gary saying 40 cents. Phil with a Michael Jordan number, 23 cents, if you meant to type a little Michael Jordan number there. Margaret, 30 cents. So, we're kind of around the same vicinity. All different answers to a variation, but generically, you're within a ballpark of each other, right? Notice that no one wrote 5 cents. No one wrote 10 cents. No one wrote 8 cents. Because to me, that's kind of a small move for stocks that we see that make a big breakout like this. So, you know what? I'll start off myself. It depends on where the next resistance is, mind you. So 250, could be your next resistance being a 50-cent level. Little resistance here at 250, right? So to jump in at 227 out under 250 and you make 23 cents, there you go, Phil, Michael Jordan number. That is not small. How big is big? Well, this trade here, if it were to go from 225-ish up to 250, that's not small. Let's just put it that way. So if you were to get out right there, I'd say that I'd feel pretty accomplished with that profit. Now, on this trade, maybe something I personally should have had more faith in. And I mean this because I saw this in the moment. I just wanted to take the profit eventually, right? The more any stock goes up, the more you're like, I'm going to get out. Well, look at where we have resistance from back in March, back like in the beginning of March, mid of March there. Well, right around 245, 246. Well, hey, if it could break above that cleanly and hold above that, then there's a case to see continuation. Where I probably messed up a bit, where I could have held on longer for this trade, was simply that. At least move my quote unquote mental stop up to like 245, 242. I say mental stop because, again, you can't set a physical stop in the pre market. You don't have a real seatbelt on to buckle yourself in with. So there is more risk with holding on to a trade because you don't want to squander a profit, right? I'd said this was the second stock I jumped into in the pre-market session. The first I'll show you in a moment. But even that, like, I don't want to start off the morning, not even to say zero, but to start off with a completely wasted profit. I'll do that when I have money underneath my belt. I'll do that when I'm up a few $100 in my morning or afternoon when I'm like, all right, fine. Like if I blow like a 15-cent profit here, like, okay, that's okay because I'm already up. Here, I don't really have that. Even if I made money on the first trade, it's still early in pre-market, so let's still try and get our day's pay underneath us. Let's get our cushion money underneath us. So there's always more willingness to just take the money and run, right? Now, it popped up to like 261, I think I got out. Yeah, 261 I got out at. I was thinking maybe you could pull back and shake back rudely. And, hey, even there, to get in from 227 out of 261, that's not a small move, right? I felt accomplished with that. Now it continued to push up. So, of course, the more it pushes up, it's like, shoot, I should have hung on to it. Thankfully, this was the second trade I made money on the morning. The first I'll, again, go back to in just a moment, kind of going backwards here in the morning. But basically, after this one, I felt pretty good. I said, all right, you know what? Unless if this thing runs to like freaking $5 without me, I'll be pretty pissed. But otherwise, I'm sure I'll find other trades once the market does open. And we did. But, that's where you don't want to try and get too emotional with leaving money on the table. I definitely could have done a better job on this trade by holding. If I had more trust in that 245 historical level, well, in that case, that would have been, a nice little mental line of support to work off of there. Really quick, actually, I wrote this to you earlier in the chat. Unfortunately, I didn't get that low, but I did mention to you at 8:35 this morning, for all of us at least inside our live trading room, you'll see this pop up, top right. Said Lace had a strong historical level around 245 that was broken as resistance earlier. Should be support on the pullback. I'll show that one more time. So I was looking for that, just never got it. This thing just flew. Now at this stage, as we turn over to it real time now at this point, well, low float stock, low volume stock typically. It's not a swing trade. Typically a lot of these stocks just die off around 10:15, 10:30 in the morning. No surprise if this pulls back to 245 later on today. I'll be looking for a bounce there, but not as a swing bounce and not as like a bounce to get back up to 350 even. Hell, if I can get that same 30 to 40 cent move type on support, go from like 245 level back up to 280, maybe 290, that would be a pretty solid trade, right? Good game plan to work with because of expectations and also because of that big level that we had. Resistance should initially look to become support. All right, so that was actually the second pre-market trade. Let's go over the first one that I took. It was the VVOS. VVOS. Oh my God, this thing looks horrible now. It looked pretty bad even after like 9 o'clock, so it didn't make the cut. Wasn't really good looking going into the open. But this stock had a pretty decent push after the 8 o'clock move. And again, this is where otherwise it pays to be a member inside our chat board, pays to follow the moderators, myself, Fausto, obviously, with that in mind, and Rich too. But, just earlier, right after 8 o'clock, I wrote to you VVOS making a move after 8 o'clock Eastern time, right? Wrote that to you at 8:03. Doesn't guarantee it's going to pop, right? That means nothing in the grand scheme of entries and exits. But it alerts you to say, okay, the stock, it's moving after 8 o'clock. It popped up quite a bit. All right, where could we find, well, resistance and where could we find support? Where could we find support? So I was on a coaching call earlier here, and this ended up falling right into my lap. So let's ask us here really quick. I'll try and fancy my book map. Oh, I probably got too much here showing, but all right. Let's see. What do we got? What do we got? Let's try and do a little of this. There we go. For all my students here, if you're just on YouTube, you probably won't understand this. That's where we encourage you to just join us inside our room, take the little trial membership there. I actually got a bunch of us from our Wealth 365 presentation. I think Fausto just finished that up a moment ago. Welcome aboard. If you are a new trial member to CTU, kind of running headfirst into our workshop here each and every Tuesday we do. But, otherwise, hey, just make sure that you book a time to speak with your education advisor. They're the middle man or middle woman between you and Fausto, you and myself, and they'll be able to go over at least the trial. But let me ask our students. Bill got him here with us today. Have Alan, got Barbara, Kevin, Phil, Gary, got Margaret, all of our students, Thomas. Look at the column COB, just the column COB. Where do we see an iceberg order out there on the COB column? Is there an iceberg order out there? What price do we see an iceberg order out at? Kevin and Gary saying 290 iceberg. Margaret agrees. A lot of us following suit. Well, this is where I like to toss a little curveball as an instructor because the chat psychology, I've been there as a student in an online class where if you're unsure about an answer, you see some students right before you and then you kind of follow like, hey, 290. Eh, that's not really an iceberg. I mean, that's 2,300 shares in the grand scheme of life. And especially for a dirt cheap stock. Think about that. That is about $6,000 worth of money. For anyone that does not have $6,000 in their account, my apologies for asking this question, but who here has at least $6,000 or more in their trading account at this current time? I would imagine a lot of us. So, in terms of is that big money? That could literally be you or me out there. We're not market makers. We're not big money out there, right? We don't want to be. Believe it or not, without mentioning names, there's a couple of rooms, trading rooms in the past that have actually been flagged and legitimately caught by the SEC for trying to do pump and dump schemes, and they're the big money. That's not what we're doing here. So it's just to say, at least here, 2,000 shares, 2,300 shares. That's nothing. I mean, that's an orange line out there on the heat map, right? Look at that orange line out there because it's relative to what's out there. But that doesn't indicate iceberg. That doesn't indicate that's respectable money out there. And transparently enough, I'd say the same thing with only seeing 5,000 shares out there, right? 5,300 shares. But it broke above it. It broke above it after 8 o'clock, right? This is where I at least focused on not necessarily the size, because the size was still not large. Only 5,000 shares. Folks, I don't trade 5,000 shares of really any stock out there. I do maybe 2,000 at most myself. But, it's still to say this is not tremendous money out there. It's not a huge iceberg like we saw earlier on RVSN or Lace or any of these others out there from before. So this is where we got to be careful. But it did pop this as resistance. It moved up from it as resistance. If you really put this under a microscope, as we, marketed traders talk to be, you have a little ladder kicking in on the buy side too. Look at that. Now, I didn't take this trade here because it was right after 8 o'clock. I'm not just jumping in headfirst into the unknown. We got to see at least something play out initially. See either more orders to fill in, or in this case, It popped right away. Hey, for all of us here, I think you know it's coming. But when a stock breaks above resistance and it runs off of it, I'd like to think that resistance should initially become what? Resistance initially become what? Not the second time, not the third time, not the fourth time, but the first time. Now, it looks nasty here. It looks like a nasty shakedown, but this is where I focus on under and over. Under and over. I'm not placing orders out there waiting to get filled. I mean, even earlier, I always try and write this once a day at this point. I mentioned this just on the stock lace in pre-market, not this one, but I'd said, hey, don't catch a falling knife. You can't catch a falling knife. You can't just place a buy order out there just assuming support to hold perfectly, especially for something that didn't really have such a good spread at first. That's that's horrible risk management if anyone does that. Um, and I'm being just very transparent. I don't mean to sound like a meanie when I say that, because if you're someone that does that, I could only imagine that you've gotten whooped on trades because you caught the falling knife. It hurt. So here, what I specifically look for, strategically, intentionally look for, is to see it go under and over, under and over. So 320 was my level, under and over, and it led to the move up. Now, at this point, I was already on my call, so it's just a matter of like, hey, the more it pops, of course, I could try and ride the wave, but this was my first trade on the morning. This was trade numero uno here. So, here on this one, I said, let me just get out. I got out, it was actually like 406 or 401. Yeah, 401 and close. I just basically hit a price on the bid and click close. Because again, you can't set a stop in pre-market. You can't use a market order in pre-market. So you have to intently follow level 3 or level 4. Just watch the bid and really use a limit price that's under that. Because at least if there's an order that pops up above where your limit price is at least you're going to basically get filled at that price. It's called a marketable limit order, believe it or not. Some brokers at least call it that. So, VVOS was a nice trade here because we ended up seeing strategy play out. It's not just because it moved up. I mean, hell, look at what happened shortly after I got out. This was actually, a very nice exit in the grand scheme of it all. But, don't even need to be perfect with the exit as long as we have a clean entry, as long as we're pristine with getting in, right? Now that will kind of bring me towards now this point in the morning where, even from earlier, but now more so as well. If you already have, let's say, however much money under your belt on the morning, if you're up like $100, if you're trading smaller shares to be up $100, that's like you're kicking ass. But however much money, whether you're up 100, 500, if you're up near your day's pay, like 8, 900. All right. Well, at this point now, you could afford going break even and you shouldn't let it affect your psyche one bit. All right. And what I mean by that is, yeah, of course, if a stock continues to pop up and up and up and up without you, it flies without you, up 100% move without, of course, you'll be pissed. That happened to me last week in class. I tagged in for Fausto. He needed me to teach phase 3. Well, I wanted to stay true to our rules and wait till 3:30 in the afternoon to take trades. Well, the trade that popped started off at 3:05 in the afternoon, and I didn't want to feel dirty and impulsive. Well, the freaking thing took off to eternity without me. So, of course, the more any stock goes up without you, you get upset. But folks, you know what? If you're up 10, 12 cents on a trade now, and then it washes out, it pulls back and you go completely break even, or if you go maybe +2, or if you go -1, or whatever it is, like within that tiny vicinity, you shouldn't let it affect your psyche. It's like the last thing that you should ever give thought to. Just move on. And that's not to say move on to a different stock. You might want to still follow the same stock, maybe right place, wrong time, but just move on in terms of that exact trade. And, hey, maybe you'll make that move momentarily. But let me ask us here. And I had asked earlier, but, this is where I was kind of coming to now at this point. We got Masters Week. We got big golf tournament, right? The green jacket. So who here is a golf fan? And it's a little fun. Who here, or who do you have winning for the Masters? One of our students said Will Zalatoris, I think. Anyone here a golf fan? And if so, who do you have winning the Masters here coming up? A little fun with this I want to have. I also, I'm not the biggest golf fanatic, so I don't know who's on PGA now, who's on Live, who's doing what. So, hey, my apologies there. But anyone here a golf fan? Let me know. No one here a golf fan. I don't blame you. It's a slow sport. I'm more of a combat sports guy myself, boxing, MMA. I really am. College basketball just wrapped up. Sympathetically, I would be a UConn Huskies fan, but Abdul, there we go. There we go. From earlier, Abdul did mention he is a golfer himself when he tries to get out. So, hey, when you go par on a hole, let's just say you yourself, you go par on a hole. Let's say it's the 10th or 12th hole. And I'll get to why I say that exactly in a moment. The 10th or 12th hole. Let's say we go par. Is that bad, Abdul? Scott, is that bad? If you go par on the 10th or 12th hole, should you be upset with yourself? Should you be pissed? Like, damn it. Abdul says, chalk it up to experience. No. Alan says, par is good. Absolutely, it's good. Now, here's the difference between golf and trading. And especially with the dynamic of this chat board, because, as much as I know that most of us do not think this way, at the end of it all, we are all human beings, and sometimes emotion gets the best of us, right? Myself included. But that's where I say the only people that you're competing against when it comes to trading is yourself. Hey, in this room, I'm not competing against Alan. I'm not competing against Abdul or Margaret or Lee or Dominic or Sam or Kevin or anyone here. I'm only competing against Josh, right? Now, with the golf tournament, where I bring that up is hey, if you keep going par, 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 and your competitors, your fellow golfers out there are going one under, one under, one under, double eagle, albatross. I'm starting to toss out all sorts of golf names out there. Just to say that you're going to fall behind, right? That's clearly the difference. That's where I tell you here when it comes to trading stocks, since we're basically our only competition right now, don't get upset if you go par on a trade. It's okay. Especially if you're already shooting pretty well on the morning. If you've already had, one under or, two under, whatever. You had a hole in the one, right? Well, hey, if you go par, par, par all the way through for the rest of the day, that's A-okay in my book. That's still a hell of a round. Now, let me ask, does anyone debate that perspective? Does anyone have any questioning on that perspective or debating on that at all? Does that make sense to everybody? Because, hey, it's not so easy to think about that as you're trading. It's not so easy to be think about this under a very unique perspective, be more fully thinking about it. But that's where, we need to talk about this stuff here in Traders Talk, right? It's easier to put a trade under a microscope, easier to put a morning under a microscope in full and say, you know what, hey, for our students that are down on the morning right now, let's do a little math. We got basically 4 hours and 15 minutes until the market closes today, right? Market opened up at 9:30. Let's say you didn't trade pre-market. So it's been about 2 hours and 12 minutes so far since the market opened up, right? You have about 4 hours, 15 minutes to go. I'm not going to get the best math on this, but in terms of a round of golf, we're probably on the 7th hole, right? Makes sense? We're probably on the 7th hole. So if you're down right now, I think that we got a lot of time to come back. I think we got a lot of time. Now, that's where I can go further and be like, well, hey, is every minute of every day going to be as nice? No, because coming up, you should probably expect things to be pretty slow and stagnant. That's true. That's true. Maybe some of the holes that we'll be playing on will be more par fours than par threes. But that's where we need to be more selective with our shot, perhaps. But point being is from this point going forward, from 11:43 a.m. Eastern time, we got plenty of time until we finish up our round of golf for today. So, we're not going to jump into anything live right now, but I want to go over some questions, some emails. I had a couple detailed ones that came in from before, but I just wanted to mention that initially, right? For anyone that's not as familiar with trading pre-market, please note that I don't want students to be as active trading pre-market until they become more familiar trading the regular hours, like right now, when you have the chance to put your seatbelt on at least, right? But that's what made this morning so advantageous because Lace just being the star of the morning, this had a penny spread or maybe at most 1 to 2 cent spread the whole way through, made for a good trade. Even RVSN here, this one from earlier, Irving, this ended up breaking lower on us just there before, right? So we were patient on this trade. It broke down. We were watching it, didn't make that move back up. Well, earlier, this one ended up bouncing up pretty nicely. Not the greatest trade to write home about, but hey, this had a penny spread. It had a very liquid order book. You don't tend to see those types of stocks move as well during the pre-market hours. So again, that's why I was kind of hyping this up to be such a nice morning from the jump. All right, really quick, coming in from one of our new trial members here, Max, and um, I'd mentioned just I'll try and get through as much of this email as possible. Very well laid out email, and I'm going to get back to him otherwise individually, just whether it be private chat here or email response later on or tomorrow the latest. But get through as much of this here. We got a couple more though. So Max, basically just a new trial member here joining us, deciding if it makes sense for him to become a student moving forward long term. 30 years of experience already within the stock market, but more with investing though, like long-term investing, portfolio based. And up until this day, they haven't really been a day trader. All right, they want to learn more about level 3, so that's what kind of led them here. They had more questions in relation to different videos that we had sent out as a new trial member. I would say, Max, just really quickly, and you'll probably have further questions for myself. I'll look forward to at least answering those. But these Traders Talk workshops are your best outlet as a trial member. I know that we offer on time and sales and entries and exits and whatnot. We actually need to touch those up going into this calendar year. That's on our docket. So I want to mention that your most relevant recent content that you want to go through are these weekly Traders Talk workshops. And every week there's just different questions that get sent in and different stocks that we have the chance to go over. But those are more recent, just week to week to week. I just wanted to mention that at first. So really quick, just something I'll kind of just mention actually here. I'll answer two questions at the same time, just from another student too. Just basically saying, we don't show as much on the NASDAQ book viewer inside our live trading room. So that is true because myself, my colleague Rich, we have TradeStation as our main broker here, both of us. But that doesn't mean that you need to have TradeStation. And if you don't have TradeStation, then odds are you probably need to get the NASDAQ book viewer on your platform or pardon me, not on your platform directly, but at least to go directly to the NASDAQ website and sign up for that. So actually, just to answer for another member, I think that was asking, you can go directly to datastore.nasdaq.com and sign up for it yourself, $15 a month exactly. But I'll do like a really small synopsis on the book viewer here briefly, and then just keep going. Let's see if there's any stocks moving live currently. No, that's not looking good. Let's go to XPEV. Let's see if this shows. So hopefully this will play in my favor with the iceberg order that you may see. Let's use a different one for the time being. Maybe just something simple like an Apple or Tesla, something more name brand you can go with. Yeah, let's do Apple. Apple typically is known for its icebergs. I mean, a lot of these larger cap stocks, have some good ones, but all right. So the NASDAQ book viewer is laid out pretty similar to my TradeStation matrix in the sense that you have the buy order side here on the left, you have the sell order side here on the right. So let me ask our students, look at the sell order side. What price has your largest order on the ask? What price has your largest order on the sell order side? Scott saying 170. Eric agreeing with him. Yeah, 170. And that's easy on the eyes. That's an easy one for us to kind of unanimously. Maybe it's moving here and there, and maybe it's, in a different color because of the way it's laid out, but it's the one that's at 170. It's 18 plus thousand shares. And then when you look at the number of orders that actually make this size up, there's a total of 227 different sellers out there. So it's very similar in terms of how you read the TradeStation matrix that I have. It's very similar in terms of reading even level 4, just looking at the shares or size column, it would be, and seeing what price has your largest order at it. Now, if you look at this order and compare it to the chart, I think it makes sense with why we had resistance earlier at 170. Maybe there was already a seller out there, and this is just a new one that popped up. But 170 was resistance earlier, and it should still look to be, later on today if it decides to move higher. Now, with the TradeStation Matrix, it's not to say it's superior. It's just that it's literally built into my platform. Just conveniency matter. That's all. And you don't need TradeStation to day trade specifically. It's more just, that's what I always had back when I was I've been with Fausto for nearly 10 years, my 10-year Annie in October. So, really, I started off just with TradeStation. I maybe did Thinkorswim for like a week or like a 2 week stint early. I barely even remember that. Holy crap. Um, but we had a partnership with TradeStation then, and we're broker neutral, so it doesn't matter if you're on Active Trader Pro from Fidelity or Schwab Street Smart Edge, which thankfully now I got a call with one of our students. Let me ask: does anyone have Street Smart Edge from Schwab? Because it is to my understanding that you now have Bookmap on Schwab. Thinkorswim and Schwab did the merge. So with Thinkorswim, they have always had it. They've always had level 4, aka Bookmap, as we formerly know it to be. But now Schwab, I believe, has it. I believe Schwab now has the Bookmap, on their platform. But it doesn't matter as long as you have a direct access trading platform. That's what matters most. It's just that if you don't have the type of data, then NASDAQ Book Viewer is your best bet. And we'll go over maybe like one more example here briefly. I have some other questions from Max here just in the email, but I'll probably be more thorough just with writing them back specifically on it. Um, how do you deal with pullbacks, fake orders, etc.? So any order that's out here, you have to treat as real. For anyone that, and I'm just being, kind of comedic when I phrase it this way. So, I'm just saying it to put it in relation. For anyone that's out there that's worried about the world ending every single day, they probably don't live a happy life. You know what I mean? For anyone that's constantly worried about like fake orders, they're pulling manipulation, la, 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 they're just not going to get a firm grip on strategy and going with momentum. You got to treat these as if they're real. Now, is it possible in which an order can get pulled? Of course. I mean, hell, if I think the stock's going to go up higher, then maybe I pull my order and place my order at a higher price. That's completely fine. So, yes, that does happen. That happens quite a bit. But we treat these orders as if they are real because they are. I see them with my own very eyes. So, once that order gets pulled, then we'll react to say, oh, well, what if that seller at 170 there, the 18,000, gets pulled? Well, in theory, if that pressure from the sell side gets relieved, then perhaps the stock will have a better chance at running upward. That would be a thought, but you don't want to overthink because you don't know fully what's going on as far as like maybe that order is at a higher price, maybe they're going to place that order at a lower price momentarily. So you got to keep your eyes peeled. It's always a matter of reacting. I just try not to overthink about it. I just plot my levels and I treat those orders as if they're real. Now, dealing with pullbacks, that's just more or less to say with our style of trading, we're trying to go with momentum. We're trying to be on the upswing with momentum. So even for Lace and that breakout above resistance at 226 we had, 225 early this morning. Well, it took a few attempts, right place, wrong time at first. So that's where Fausto namely uses the 30-second rule he teaches in the advanced class that we offer. Basically, if it's not going to make that move shortly after you get in, it's best, in which you set a tight stop or just trust your level maybe at best, but otherwise, you know, right place, wrong time often happens, right? So maybe some of my dialogue from before has already answered these questions now, just kind of indirectly, kind of my golf examples and going par on a hole, right? Basically, just to kind of sum up, time and sales is your receipt of a transaction. Uh, Let me ask you really quick, what's CVS known for? Talking about CVS Pharmacy, not the stock, of course, but you go to CVS, you buy your, goods, your medication, maybe get some shampoo, some deodorant. What are they known for? They're probably doing an investigation for how many trees they waste per year. Yeah, they have long receipts. Well, time and sales is our receipt for the transactions that are getting filled live. So it's not as easy to read compared to some of the other programs because it moves the fastest. So more or less, that's where I'll tell you. Once I get in the trade, I got to make sure my foot's still on the gas pedal, meaning like basically just making sure that we keep seeing orders from the ask, from the sell side, getting broken through, getting filled. So the more stock is moving up, you are seeing that. And the more of that you see, well, you should see green, 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 green on time and sales. All right. I will mention at least a lot of things I can dig into further. I need the time to go into it further. So that's where obviously only 5 minutes to go here in Traders Talk. Got a coaching call to jump onto with one of our students in a bit. But really, though, our phase one stock course offers everything A to Z, at least, that you need to know. Just further from Max here, his email, just in relation to, criteria that we put in the stock screener. Volume traded across the total part of the day plays a big part of our scans. So we have like criteria for that in the morning versus the afternoon. But otherwise, even as important as that is, again, just making sure the stock has a consistently filled in order book. For the ones that are on like very thin volume, there's no other way to phrase it than this. There is a much higher risk, and you are to a great level gambling, right? I mean, we're always gambling in this market, but we are using less strategy and applying more risk when we're trading a stock that has very tiny orders out there and has a big spread. So, I don't really have a stock to kind of jump to right now. Maybe, I don't know, this thing here from earlier, a failed move from before. Just stocks that carry thinner liquidity, it's not going to be as easy to make decisions off of, right? So that plays a big part in our criteria, essentially. All right. Then, if anything, hey, for Max here or any of our other trial members joining us here, again, I do say go through these recordings, the Traders Talk workshop recordings. I know Max went through some, workshops on top, some like supplementary workshops we do offer as well. Traders Talk is your best bet, though. We host these on our website, the recordings of them, so you can go through last week's, last month's, just all over the recent editions. But that's where you'll have a better kind of ability to pick my brain more on trades that we've called out of recent. All right, really briefly here, let me just finish up. I got to go through a couple more emails if I can. Um, well, there we go. An email that came in from Jill. She just says, unfortunately, she's going to miss it live, but she'll try and catch the recording. And then that's exactly why we record this. So, on YouTube, on the C2 student portal, that's where we have our main hub for Traders Talk there. There we go, Alan. Just see his email right now. I got to this from before, just indirectly, but he said, would like for you to talk about Lace, still trading on paper, but need to see what your opinion is. What could have been a better entry point and exit? So we definitely hammered that one home. Let me know if you have any follow-ups, at least there, Alan, or any of us all together, just on that Lace stock. I'll tell you a trade I missed. Oh, this one really pissed me off. Talking about missed opportunity. Oh my God. Well, you know what? It's bouncing back up now. I reckon it wasn't like the world's biggest miss, but I took a 7-cent loss on CLSK after the market opened up. And from there, it bounced. I took a short, and it was a failed move. Right place, wrong time. I say right place, wrong time because, well, look what happened later into the morning as I was jumping off the microphone. It retested the VWAP. It smashed under it. Oh my God, this would have been such a clean entry. And I just wanted to wait another minute. And this thing was just off to the racetracks, at least on the way down. It did not continue dropping, at least as we just saw it. But, it broke below the VWAP as support. Support you would think would become resistance. And now, though, it clearly is not. This is not holding this as resistance at all. So we might be on an upswing here coming up for CLSK, but it is to say earlier. I took a small loss at first here on the short. It bounced. That's fine. But on the way down, I missed this. And this would have been good for like at least 25, 30 cents as it were to go down to 15. So just wanted to a little show and tell there as far as like, hey, I traded this, I traded that. Well, it's easy to say I made money on certain trades, but I'm going to tell you where I lost. I'll tell you where I missed out on a nice swing. And that was a nice opportunity to try and jump in short. Just, it's all right. We're not always going to be there. Right place, right time. All right, folks. Hey, I got to jump onto a coaching call. I definitely need to be there. Right place, right time for that. So, hey, let me know if you have any other questions for myself here. Josh@ctutrading.com is my email. Again, if you have any other questions or trades, please let me know. Any follow-ups, at least from this edition. You can always private chat me on top and inside our live trading room. So for Alan, Jorge, Leroy, Laureen, Frank, Alex, Patrick, Margaret, Al, and Sam, all of our students here, you know what to do there. At least private chat me on top. If you have any other questions, I'll be able to respond back at least after a few coaching calls. But I'll be back on the mic all together for us here this afternoon, just at 2:30 Eastern for the afternoon meeting. Again, hey, as a trial member joining us, if you are just signing up from Wealth 365, welcome aboard. You have a lot to kind of sink your teeth into. That's where we first and foremost say, as a trial member, do not look to trade. Do not look to risk real money, if anything, because there's a lot to go through. There's a lot to learn, and we want you to take the time to kind of soak this knowledge in and then apply it. So hey, all together, we'll be back later on this afternoon. Take care.